Hello everyone, how are you all? Hope you all are doing good. So today in this video we are going to solve questions related to limit x tends to infinity. So we have three questions and these three questions are gonna clear all your concepts for the same. So let us begin with the solutions. So the first step that we have to follow in these questions is that we need to divide both the numerator and denominator with the highest power of denominator. So for example, in the first part here, like for the denominator, x raised to the power 1 is the highest power. So we need to divide both the numerator and denominator with x raised to the power 1. So let us begin with the solution, first part. So dividing numerator and denominator with x raised to the power 1. So this is the highest power of denominator in first part. So when we do that, we'll get limit x tends to infinity 3 plus 5 by x. So first we'll solve these questions with long method and then I'll also tell you a shortcut method for the same. Fine. Minus 8 by x. Now we can separate the limits. So it will be equals to limit x tends to infinity 3 plus limit x tends to infinity 5 by x upon limit x tends to infinity 6 plus limit x tends to infinity 8 by x. This was minus here, so just a second. Fine. Now whenever we have any constant upon, like for example the form limit, this is a note here. Fine, so we can put this in a box. Like if we have limit x tends to infinity k by x or limit x tends to minus infinity k by x, this always gives us 0. This is a formula because see, whenever you divide any number by infinity, it will approximately give you 0. Fine, so that is the reason behind this. So now if we solve this, we'll get for a constant limit, whenever there is a limit for a constant, the answer remains a constant itself. So we can say that limit x tends to infinity 3 will be 3 itself. Fine, so this will be 3 and limit x tends to infinity 5 by x will be 0 as we discussed here, upon limit x tends to infinity 6 will remain 6 because it is a constant, and minus limit x tends to infinity 8 by x will be 0. So this will be 3 by 6 which is equals to 1 by 2. Now let us come to the second part. So let us come to the second part. We can duplicate this. Fine. So here also solution. We need to first divide the numerator and denominator with the highest power of denominator. So what is the highest power of denominator here? So the highest power of denominator, it is evident. So in the solution of this question also, the second part in which we are given that limit x tends to infinity 4x square minus x upon 2x cube minus 5, we need to first divide the numerator and the denominator with the highest power of denominator, that is x cube. So that will be our first step. So I am separating the limits in the first step itself so that we can save one step. Otherwise in the paper you have to write all the steps. Fine. So we can write this as limit x tends to infinity 4 upon x minus limit x tends to infinity 1 upon x square upon limit x tends to infinity 2 minus limit x tends to infinity 5 by x cube. Fine. So in this, all these terms, limit x tends to infinity, 4 by x will be 0, minus limit x tends to infinity, 1 by x squared will be 0, upon limit x tends to infinity, 2 will be 2 because it is a constant, and the last term will also be 0. Fine. So we'll get 0 upon 2, which is equals to 0. So the solution for this question is 0. Now let us proceed to the third part. Fine. So one second guys, let me write it. 5x cube minus 2x square plus 1 upon 1 minus 3x. So we have limit x tends to infinity, 5x cube minus 2x square plus 1 upon 1 minus 3x. So like the earlier questions, we need to divide the numerator and denominator with the highest power of denominator, and this time it will be x. So we'll get limit x tends to infinity, 5x square minus 2x plus 1 by x upon 1 by x minus 3. So now if we put infinity in the denominator, we'll get limit x tends to infinity. Now see, let us first solve for the numerator. Fine. So limit x tends to infinity, 1 by x will be 0 minus 3, and this in the denominator, this last term 1 by x, it will become 0, and both these terms 5x square minus 2x, so this will become infinity. Why infinity? Because limit x tends to infinity is infinity itself. Fine. So this will also become infinity, and an easier way to see this is that, like, we have 5x square here, so x square is the bigger power, so it will remain infinity. Fine. So we can write infinity. So we have infinity upon minus 3, which we can write as minus infinity. So minus infinity will be a solution. Fine. Now let us talk about the shortcut solution. So the shortcut solution is that you can divide by highest term of numerator, highest power term of numerator, highest power term of numerator upon highest power term of denominator. So let us solve by that. Like in the first question, the highest power term of numerator is 3x and the highest power term of denominator is 6x. So we can say that limit x tends to infinity, 3x upon 6x. So it will be limit x tends to infinity 1 by 2, which will remain 1 by 2 is equals to 1 by 2. Solution. For the second part, we can say that the highest power term of numerator is 5x cube and denominator is, for the second part it is 4x square and the denominator is 2x cube. So we can say that limit x tends to infinity, 4x square upon 2x cube. Fine. So it will become limit x tends to infinity, 2 by x, which is equals to 0. And for the final part, we have for the final part we have limit 5x cube upon minus 3x, limit x tends to infinity, 5x cube upon minus 3x. So it will be limit x tends to infinity, 5x square upon minus 3, which will be minus infinity. So these were the solutions related to limit x raised to infinity. So I hope